Lift off in 3, 2, 1.
Instead of on my.
Let me straighten out my beanie, man. Gotta get that. We gotta get that logo in front. The logo that we're not getting paid for.
There you go. All right, perfect. I got you in my head now instead of on my computer.
I don't know if you want me in there, man.
It's a good place to be. It's all right.
That's a beautiful place to be, I'm sure.
All
Hey, how
right.
you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, and you?
Good, man. I'm doing really good.
Good.
Just working through stuff, man, just as it's life.
Yeah.
I wanted to, I guess I should just start by starting because I have a lot to talk about today, and I don't know that I'm curious if any of it makes any sense for you. So I'm just going to start by welcoming anybody that's watching to our podcast, the Body Mind Index, and I'm your host, Jerry Pujals, and I'm here with my good friend, Dustin Diede, who is trying to help me figure things out, and I am forever grateful in the realm of nutrition as well as movement and physical activity. So it's been interesting, man. Since the last time we talked, I have literally had an interesting conversation with my nutritional coach.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to make some changes to my diet that I just found for me just kept adding on weight. I went and got my DEXA scan, and it freaked me out, Dustin. I got my DEXA scan. Damn DEXA scans. They're almost more scary than the scale in a way because they're more factual than the scale, right?
Right.
So the DEXA scan in the last 6 months, I've put on almost 14 pounds of fat. Put on only about 2 pounds of muscle. And the scale was definitely not lying. The scale was definitely telling me I was going up in weight. But what was interesting is that I'm doing much more physically now than I've done since I was in my mid 40s. And I have been feeling better than I have in a long time in some of these long endurance things that I'm doing. I mean, consider that the long endurance things I do are nothing like the endurance things you do. You do things at a much higher level. But for me, running 12 miles or walking for 12 miles, it's an endurance activity. Hiking for 12 hours is an endurance activity. Those are things that are challenging for me, but I love that I can accomplish them without injuring myself. So that's been just a wonderful benchmark for me in improving my health. So now that I see myself picking up all this fat, I've done a reset. And what I did that's, I think, even frustrating some people is that my reset, I have just I started with a lot more vegetables by lowering by more nutritionally dense foods, but less calorically dense. So I'm doing like a pound of stir fry for my first meal. Second meal, I'll do another pound of stir fry with some vegan protein like tofu, and then my later meal I do the pound of vegetable. First meal, second meal, the pound of vegetable without the tofu because my doctor suggested that I not take in as many calories while I'm trying to shed some weight and some of this body fat. And he suggested that I go with my pound of vegetables for the third meal. And I know you're talking to a vegan. I know you're not. So this is going to be an interesting topic for us to go over as you see the world, because as you know, we all have these lenses that are called our own. And they do make conversations challenging, which is what I want to work through, is some of these challenging conversation and different points of view, because I obviously respect yours. So the other thing, the last meal that I have now, which I'm having at sunset, I'm not waiting till it even gets dark to have my last meal. I'm having my last meal right when the sun starts setting, which is like 4:30 to 5 p.m. here. So I'm done eating definitely by 5:30 or 6 for sure. And I go to bed by about 8:30. So my last meal, again, to get to the point on that, is a pound of vegetables, stir fry or salads. But for now, because it's so cold, I'm doing stir fries, which are water sautés. And I do a really good stir fry. And then from there, I have a complex carbohydrate. I'll have a good portion of, brown rice or sweet potato or something like that. And then I'll do my serving of tofu or beans or things like that. And today I'm on day 5 of that. Day 4 completed yesterday. Today I jumped on the scale and I was literally down. I have people struggling to believe this, but I was definitely down 7 pounds on the same scale that I've been weighing myself on. And I know it could be mostly water weight. I don't take in extra sodium. And I definitely haven't taken anything that would be processed with extra sodium. I was doing the vegan protein and things like that have maybe a little more sodium than what I've been taking lately. So I cut that out too. But I'm curious. I'm going to continue to do this because I feel actually really good. I don't know that I feel good enough for a major endurance thing right now. I can definitely admit that. Yesterday, JP and I went on a 10.5 mile walk up to Yountville and back. And then within that walk, we cranked out about 120 push-ups. And when we got back, we did a cold plunge, man. 40-something degree water, and then we did a hot tub.
Yeah. All right. I got to ask some questions. I almost feel like I need a pencil. You're going to have to give me 30 seconds. I got to write some stuff down.
Take your time. I'll entertain everybody while you're gone. I knew this was going to throw you for a tailspin.
I don't think it is. I think I'm going to give you lots of different perspectives. I've done lots of research. And today is not just going to be my opinion. I have a few resources that I'm going to be citing as well as we go through this. Before I go any further, let me preface by saying I am not a nutritionist. Okay, what I am is a 50-year-old male who has been doing endurance athletic events since I was in my 20s, and I compete on a nonstop level. So, I ride my bike anywhere between 10 to 15 hours a week. I'm in the gym 2 days a week, throwing up iron and doing core strength and body strength and trying to maintain. So everything that I do know, or everything that I've come up, and that I might even be prefacing here or talking about in here, is going to be stuff that I have dealt with through the years. Yes, I have worked with nutritionists. I've had some really good friends that have been nutritionists. I've got some great cycling friends that are vegans. So we always, there's always the fun between the vegan and the protein, the non-vegan. So we have a good time with that. And there's a lot of questions and a lot of rides. I mean, when you're on a bike for 5 hours, there's a lot that gets thrown out there. So we've had these conversations. So everything that I'm giving you is coming from a vast variety of different people, anywhere from nutritionists to sports science guys, to research that I've looked up and read online, to YouTube videos, YouTube University. I have a degree in that, probably a master's in YouTube University. But we're going to dive into that. Before I start, pound of vegetables 3 times a day. A little bit of protein coming from some tofu, coming from obviously from some of those complex carbohydrates provide you with protein. There's protein in the vegetables, which again is a complex carbohydrate. On a daily, what is your current caloric intake? Just straight up calories. Calories in, calories. That's what I want to know. What do you think it is?
So I'm gonna give each one of the bowls. I'm gonna exaggerate a little bit. Every pound of vegetables I eat is running under 200 calories a bowl. So I'll give them 200 calories each. So I'm going to say 200 times 3. So we have 600 there. I'm eating. Now I'm down to eating half a block of the tofu per day.
Okay. What's the caloric intake on that?
I'm going to say about 200. I might be off a little bit, plus or down.
What's the macro on that? Do you know that the fat content is on that?
I should know that right off the top of my head because I look at that all the time, but I don't. It will
Okay,
not.
that's all right.
And then, like the sweet potato or the brown rice. So I'll have, I'll literally have like 1 cup of brown rice.
Once a day, 3 times a day,
Once
twice a
a
day.
day. That's the last meal of the day. I'll have a cup of brown rice. And I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
say that a cup of brown rice is probably around 300 calories.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm gonna say that a half a sweet potato, which is probably like a cup of sweet potato, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
say is about 300 calories.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at, what are we, 600 and 600, 1200. We're about 1400.
Yep.
And then I had a cup of berries last night.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my indulgence,
One
which I
cup of like just regular berries, nothing on them.
blueberries slash raspberries. So I'm
Okay.
probably going to give that about 100 calories.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably running around. I'm gonna say, because if people are if anybody is this way, I think most people are this way, which is we figure out on the side we're probably eating more than we think we're eating.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say I'm probably somewhere 16 to 1800 calories a day right now.
Okay, so just food in is 16 to 1800 calories. The only protein that I'm hearing the only major source of protein is coming in from the tofu, which is only 200 calories of tofu, which can't carry much more than, 25 to 30 grams of protein. I can look it up, and I probably will look it up as we're speaking, because I need to know where that protein level is, to kind of understand this all. Now, your exercise regimen is pretty solid, and from last time when we spoke, you weren't actually consuming calories during your exercise. Is that still the case? Are you still working without calories and just using water while you work out?
Okay, man. So I've thought a lot about you, and I've changed that to the point where I was eating sort of my own homemade trail mix,
Okay.
basically some dried fruit, actually the big raisins that are the golden raisins that are
Yep.
dehydrated. They're
Mm-hmm.
wonderful with a handful of those, along with a handful of almonds every 45 minutes on any type of hike, long
Okay.
walk or run. I was doing that. Uh,
Excellent. So I can't tell you. I mean, don't. I don't care if the DEXA scan goes off the wheels. I mean, I don't. It doesn't matter. Do not stop eating that amount of sustenance while you're doing those workouts.
so I
And
did
we'll talk.
change that
We'll talk
yesterday.
about that.
Let me tell you why you may be disappointed. So yesterday I changed that to only eating carrots for my 10 and a half mile walk.
And how many hours was the 10 and a half miles yesterday?
I'm going to say it had to be 2.5 hours.
Okay. So this is I don't understand how the science is working here. Again, I'm not the nutritionist. Your nutritionist can give you all of this stuff, but I would have to say, and what I've noticed over the years is our bodies are the most amazing pieces of machinery. I mean, we are divinely created with this innate ability to survive. That's what our body is meant to do. It's meant to live. So anything and everything that we take in, we're taking in for a purpose. And, if we take it in and we either store it or we use it. And then if our body recognizes that there may be a surplus of it, we're going to store that in fat. We're going to hang on to it. We're not going to give any of that up. But if our body realizes and senses that we are in basically a state of the ketosis state where we're eating ourselves, basically we're in this state of survival. I have a feeling that I not have a feeling. I know your body's in a state of survival right now. You are not taking, again, not the nutritionist, but in my opinion, you are not taking in the calories that is needed to sustain life, normal day-to-day function, and exercise in the intensity and the duration of which you're currently doing. if you ate the nuts and if you ate the dried fruits and if you're eating all of the vegetables and everything is getting consumed exactly the way that you're saying that it's being consumed, you're consuming less than 2,000 calories a day, which for a sedentary person, that's awesome. That's going to sustain, that's going to help you cut a little bit of fat, that's going to help you kind of normalize and get down. But you're actually in this state of where it's almost like this internal cannibalism, that's you're eating the insides of yourself. And I get it. I understand the desire to lose all that fat. But I think what your body has done is your body has said, thrown up the SOS, thrown up the panic. They got a white flag in the air, and anything and everything that your body is consuming, your body is automatically going into storage mode. And there's only one way that we store things. We don't store things in muscle. We can store water, but your body's not storing the water. Your body is storing the food, and the only way to store it is in fat. It's got to convert it into fat because that's our storage system for food. And I feel like everything that you're bringing in is just getting put away because your body is so scared of when its next nutrient dense meal is going to come from. Okay. So
I found the block of tofu. So I guess, well, just so you know, one block of tofu has less calories than I thought. The whole block has 352. So I'm eating half. So figure $1.75.
Yeah.
24 grams of fat in the whole block. I'm eating 12 grams and 18 grams of fiber per serving. So the whole block has 36 grams of fiber.
Okay.
So
what about protein?
Oh, sorry. I meant to say protein, not fiber. Protein is only, protein is 36 grams for the whole block, 18 grams for half a block. Yeah, protein. Sorry. Dietary fiber is 1.2, negligible. And carbohydrate.
So are you using anything to or are you using anything to track your food so that you can track your macros and your micros?
I've used it before. I can go back to it and start tracking them. Yeah, and I could, you know what I struggle with, and what I struggle with is food addiction, and that's a complex topic because it comes from, how do I satiate while I don't overconsume? And for me, it seems like the slippery slope is it's probably the complex carbohydrates, and I don't like to face that, even though
the complex or the simple?
The complex.
When you say this, okay. Yeah, I thought you were saying you're slippery, like your indulgence comes from simple carbs, does it not?
No, I think for me, it's sweet potatoes and things like that. That's where I can overindulge. Brown rice, things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're considering complex carbohydrates, right?
Well, yeah, that would be more along the lines of complex. Usually when people are afraid of what they overindulge in, it's the simple carbs.
Yeah,
it's the sugars.
I'm not eating white rice. I'm not eating any. Yeah, I haven't eaten any of that for over a year. Hence why I've lost over 80 pounds. But I find myself at a place where I need some kind of a reset because I'm really psychologically screwed up with the scale. Then going and getting the DEXA scan was a different picture that only aligned with the scale. It was like, wow, so that's kind of what I'm struggling.
So when you say that you're working with a nutritionist and you've worked with that person, is this a periodic, like, hey, I just give them a call and talk to them? And okay, so even a nutritionist would tell you, and I think that the general public would tell you that, one, the best way to understand what the food is doing for you is to actually know, and the only way to know is to track it. So me personally, I use a MyFitnessPal. I think if you've got an iPhone, everybody's got it.
I love MyFitnessPal. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even need the premium membership for it. You can even use the knockoff membership. The premium just allows you to scan labels and stuff like that. But the regular membership, there is a database of a bazillion foods inside of there. So, you can do 2 eggs over any way, medium, poached, boiled, whatever. You can see exactly what that is. But by tracking the food and being really strict about tracking the food, like knowing that, okay, I used a tablespoon of olive oil to make my stir fry, or maybe I used a pat of butter to put on my rice to give it a little flavor, or maybe I like a sprinkle of cinnamon and maybe a touch of brown sugar on my sweet potato. But actually being legitimate about that, what that does for you, and I'm gonna kind of go off camera for just a second because I'm gonna grab my phone, because I track mine, and when I track it, the biggest thing that I love about it is looking at the macros on there, and going in and being able to see, legitimately, what does my day look like when it comes to the nutrition and when it comes to the macros. So it's a little hard to see. I'm gonna bring this in. So this is my current day right now. Obviously, I've only had breakfast so far. I took a late breakfast. I had a doctor's appointment this morning. So, and I'll let you know what my breakfast was. So I had a bagel, gluten-free, obviously, toasted. I put a pat of butter on there. I put 2 fried eggs on there and a slice of American cheese. So, and I'm just talking about straight up American, like Velveeta type cheese, processed cheese, guys. I know me and Jerry are on different wavelengths when it comes to what we put in our bodies. But what this is telling me is that 29% of that meal was carbohydrate. There was a large amount of fat. Now, there's a lot of fat in the butter. There's a lot of fat in the bagel. There's, obviously the processed cheese is mostly fat. In fact, it's made from oil and sugars and processed, and it really not a whole lot to it. And then 14% of that was protein. So right now, my macros don't look really good. But of course, as I go through the day, my breakfast is my main, like, that's my favorite meal. That's the meal that I love to consume. And just, I feel like in the morning, you can eat whatever you want, and then you can work it out through the day. So if you're trying to, I want to have a really nice macro by the end of the day, fine. I don't do it. I'm not super strict all day long. I don't go, okay, I need 33% of my proteins and 33% of my carbs and 33% of my fat in every meal. That doesn't work for me. In the morning, I go ape shit crazy, and I eat what I want to eat because I'm hungry, right? Because I went to bed, I fasted for nearly 14 hours most of the time. I finished. I'm kind of a sunset meal kind of guy too, like right before sunset. So I'm usually eating dinner at 5:30, maybe 6 if it's crazy, 6:30. So then we're pretty much done for the night there. But I'm not so focused on those macros in the morning, but I think the macros are super important. And with MyFitnessPal, you can look at those macros. According to, and here we're going to go into the research, because I feel like it's always super important that people have, valuable resources, or at least some legitimacy. So I use a couple of different things. There's Better Health, which is a government agency, and it's betterhealth.vic.gov. And it basically, this is just the basic dietary necessities for an athlete. And when I say an athlete, we're talking about somebody who's doing, 5 to 7 hours of exercise a week, which for me and you, we well fit that program. So we should be considered an athlete. So we're supposed to consume anywhere between 40 to 65% of our food should be coming from carbohydrates, which I don't think you have a problem. I think your carbohydrate intake is right up where it needs to be. We should be consuming 25% of our caloric intake should come from proteins. But we're going to talk more about that, because I don't think that applies because of our age. I'll give you some research and some data behind that. And then the rest of it should come from fat, which is another 25%, right? So 25 fat, 25 proteins, and 45 to 65, or let's just call it an even 50 to make the math work, carbohydrates. Well, that's that's the general public. Okay. That's the general 6 to 7, hours a week kind of athlete. We're not the general public because of our age. And there is a vast amount of research that goes into sports and athletics and protein consumptions. We use a large amount of muscle to get through our day-to-day activities. And according to sports science, now this I'm pulling off of an NCBI website, and it is also a .gov website. So I am using .gov websites here to provide this data. But according to Sports Nutrition Consensus Statement, we should be consuming upwards of 1.2 to 1.4 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight per day. So I weigh 149 pounds. We'll call that 68 kilos plus or minus. So I should be consuming anywhere between, let's say, 75 grams of protein all the way up to 150 grams of protein. Another way to do that is basically a gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's another good number that you can use. That's to get on the high end of the protein side. And that's for athletes. Okay. And that's what they're saying. So and those are people who are out there working day in and day out. Without that protein intake, your muscles can't repair themselves as well. Carbohydrates, they store up as glycogen in the system. So they store up as sugar to be used for readily accessible exercise, high intensity exercise. The glycogen, once that glycogen hits its maximum storage capacity, everything else converts into fat. And since you're taking in high...
Let me interject for a second, because I don't want anybody to think that you haven't struggled with weight yourself. So
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, when I talk to you, if anybody's listening to you for the first time, I don't want them to think that you're just coming here and preaching from a place of, you don't know where I'm coming from. I want people to know that you know where I'm coming from.
Oh yeah, I wish you could, see the pictures of when my kids were first born. And I sat there and I held them and I took that picture and smiled as all the parents do, and shining from ear to ear. And there wasn't a wrinkle on my face because my face was so fat that it was like puffy, it was like swollen. I looked like it looked like I had been attacked by a swarm of killer bees. And my body followed
nature's only Botox.
Exactly, free Botox, right? Yeah, you want to look younger, get fatter, I guess. I
Absolutely.
don't know. Yeah, we look older as we start to thin out, but as time goes on, it gets a little bit better.
Yes, it
but
does.
Yeah, no, I come from a state. I mean, I was probably in the upwards of 220 to 240 pounds. I'm only 5'6". You do the math on that. That's a pretty large gentleman. Or a young man, and that was in my 20s, so I do come from that. But I also, other background, I'm crazy addicted to, whatever you want to throw it at me. I can be addicted to whatever, whether that was cigarettes in my 20s, alcohol in my 30s and 40s, and exercise ever since, just love and totally addicted to exercise. So yeah, I come from there.
It's nice it's nice to have control over your addictions.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of neat. So going back to that protein piece, I feel like just based off of what you told me, I bet I would venture to say that you are protein deficient in so many areas, but without knowing the macros and without actually plugging it in, and without an app like MyFitnessPal, I don't think you would know that you're deficient in the protein side of the house. I think that you're taking in a surplus of carbohydrates, and your body is storing, obviously it's replenishing your glucose, but you don't burn a lot of glucose. Your exercise activities are typically zone 2, because and when I say zone 2, I mean below your lactate threshold. Yep. And your heart rate is well below 75% of your maximum heart rate. So you're in this zone that actually basically runs on fat. It does consume some carbohydrates, don't get me wrong. It still will use up some of that glycogen, but it mostly consumes fat. Well,
just so you know,
no,
I'm sorry. Just so you know, I've started. It might make a little bit of a difference in what you're going to say. I've recently started including 3 HIIT workouts, so 20 to 30 minute hits in the morning. So I'm doing one day endurance thing, and then one day 20, 30 minute HIIT with weights, because I heard you last time, and time to get some iron in there.
Yeah, it is. I think it's definitely time to get that in, and that's going to feed into my next subject here. But I want to go and I want to finalize this protein piece because I can't lead into the next part of it without expressing that an athlete should have 1.2 grams of kilo per, or grams of carbohydrates per kilo of body weight, because that's where we're doing the repairs that we need to do. That's when we're going to sleep and we're getting it in. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because I know, and I'm a bad proponent of that. I like to turn off the food, or try and turn off the food, while the sun's still going down, and going to bed with a little less in my stomach. But we can talk about some other stuff when we talk about recovery and protein. But we got to get that protein intake up. And I think if you tracked yours with MyFitnessPal, and it literally is so simple to roll in, scroll across, and see the macros. And even if you're just looking at the pie chart alone, I think it'll give you an eye-opening experience as to where you really sit. And it's important that we have the healthy fats and the fats in our body. We have to have them because that's what's helping us break down the food. We got to have the protein because that's what's helping us with the muscle recovery. And we need the carbohydrates to replenish those stores that we use during exercise. So it's so important to hit all three of those macros. That's why literally they make an entire pie chart out of those three primary things. They don't care about how much vitamin C or A or K or anything else. That's why those are called micros. The most important, the biggest piece of the puzzle is macro. And if you're not balancing the macro, then you could be cannibalizing your own efforts. You could be missing so many of those big pieces because you're not going to actively recover the way that you need to. And on top of that, your body may be starving in one area, so it's creating some sort of a chemical imbalance that's forcing you and telling itself that we have to store, we have to create fat, we have to, we're not going to give you what you need, Jerry, because you're not giving us what we need. That's what's happening. And I think that's the struggle that you may be facing internally. So track. That's tip number one. Everybody out there, track it and you will know. So MyFitnessPal is free application. You can buy the premium membership. There's no need for it, but you can get the MyFitnessPal for free. And it's pretty obvious what the effects of that are. Now, what I alluded to earlier, and that's the big thing in the room is, and I think our general public, we're not 20-something-year-old people. We're not 30s. We are 50-year-old men in our twilight years and we're trying to be athletes, and some people will be like, well, what are you doing? That's stupid. Can't you just enjoy life? Yes, I can enjoy life. But what I really want to do is enjoy life with my grandkids and enjoy life with my hopefully grandkids, that would be incredible. So I just ran across Dave Johnson, a realtor in town. I didn't even realize the man was 79 years old. He exercises every single day. This man is a stellar. You look at him and you're like, 79? No flipping way he's 79.
Big hiker.
Takes care of himself.
Big hiker.
He's a huge hiker. Yeah, he's a big hiker. He's a big walker. And hopefully I'm not getting him upset for blasting him out here, or if he hears us, cool. But he is the epitome of what I want to be when I'm 79 years old. That man is it blows my mind. And there's a lot of people that are like that, and we don't even realize it. We don't even see that type of thing. So what we do is, the reason why we are what we are in this stage of our life is because we want that longevity in our lifespan. So now, being 50 years old, I think it's a little bit different as an endurance athlete. I think that the macros need to be adjusted slightly. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I've done a ton of research on this. I am going to cite a real quick spot here. This is coming, let me pull that out. This is coming from mysportscience.com. It is a .com, so it's not a government associated website, but it is saying that, men that are not men, but masters athletes, that's what we're called. I think it's a great name. It's not old guys. So we're not the old guys. We're the masters. We're supposed to be the guys who have it all figured out by now, right? That's what master means. We should be taking in upwards of 0.4 kilogram or 0.4 grams of carbohydrate. I'm sorry, 0.4 grams of protein more than what a normal athlete would take in, because we're in our 50s. You see, we can't build muscle like a 20-year-old can. And, a 20-year-old guy goes to the gym and 6 months later he comes out jacked. We go to the gym for 6 years and we come out and we're still got flappy skin, and we're still like trying to figure out how to get rid of the spare tire around our waist. So we don't build the muscle like they build it. It takes us upwards of 3 times longer to build muscle than it does for somebody who's in their 20s. So to me, that means I have to protect every ounce of muscle that I have in my body. Every ounce. Well, the only real way to do that is to give it the protein it needs so that the muscles are protected and that they can recover and that they can build and continue to stay strong. Things like the mitochondria production, which is that zone 2 training, this type of stuff, building up that extra mitochondria helps us build the powerhouses for our muscle and helps us to convert that protein so that we can get stronger and faster. So I think that the reality of it is, based on that research of 0.4 grams more, we could be eating upwards of, almost 2 grams of protein per kilogram, which straight up converts to one kilo per pound almost, because I think it's 2.3 is the conversion. But we could be eating, I could be eating 150 grams of protein and it not be a problem. I'm not going to gain, fat from that. What I've also noticed is by consuming high levels of protein, and trust me, I don't get my target is 150 grams. It's hard to hit that. It's really hard to hit that. Go back to my macros from this morning. Just my breakfast this morning, I was able to get 24 grams of protein. I've still got 2 meals and a snack to squeeze in there, but even if I'm going to have to really up my game. So probably my snack is probably going to be a protein shake, because I know I can pound 40 grams of protein in there. I also use Fairlife chocolate milk. It's got 30 grams of protein. It's 150 calories. It's got low sugar. Glycemic index on it's pretty low. Carbohydrate intake on it's pretty low. Love the stuff. I drink it more frequently because that helps me with that protein intake. Low fat, fat-free milks are great for that. You can find those all over the place. Yes, there's a lot of them that are ultra pasteurized. So if you're trying to stay away from that process thing, I get it. But God gave us cows, man. We gotta think that they gave it to us for a reason. So
you're the opposite. You're the opposite of Dr. Goldhammer, who I had on the show yesterday. He calls cow's milk cow pus.
Cow pus? Oh well, everybody's got their own opinions. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to hit those. Yeah, I'm just trying to hit those numbers, and protein's hard to come across in a natural state. To consume 150 grams of proteins through nuts and berries and fruit, and vegetables, I can only imagine that I would have to eat so many vegetables and so many nuts that I would be feeling pretty ill.
To hit the numbers that you're talking about, I found it almost impossible with some type of protein shake or some type of vegan supplementation. And even at that, it was hard to hit those macros. It was really hard. And I'm not talking about 2 grams per pound. I'm talking about barely a gram per pound. It was really
or a gram per kilo. Yeah. You don't need 2 grams per pound, but I see what you're saying. But half that, even half that's the goal. A gram per pound of weight is the goal. Anything over that is like, it's like money in the bank. It's like putting it away and saving for tomorrow. And you're right. On a vegan diet, I can't imagine that's even. I don't know how they do it. And I've had that conversation on a bicycle with a friend of mine, Dr. Jennifer Barlow. She is a doctor for the VA, California VA system. So, and a really good friend of mine. I've had that conversation. I don't know how you can possibly eat enough protein in that daily thing. And I don't know, but the good thing is that we have come a long way in vegan, and I wouldn't know because I'm not doing the research, but I do know that there's been a lot of development, and not just for vegans, but for gluten-free people, for vegetarians, for, you know, just about any diet that you could possibly want to be on, whether it's, you know, keto or whatever. There's been so much development over the past 5 years to meet everybody's special needs or everybody's special desires, more so probably desires than needs, so that they can maintain their diet that they want to maintain and still meet those macros.
Well
So
said.
I think it's just a matter of research for you. You probably got to find what works. And you're right. You're going to have, I think you would have to supplement, because I just don't think that you can eat enough carrots on a power walk to sustain and promote healthy, you know, healthy consumption of the fat in your body, and, you know, and help promote that fitness gain that you're looking for. You're trying to do two things at once. You're trying to get fit and you're trying to lose weight. And it's
hard. It's a really hard combination.
They're really far off. And what I would tell you is that, Jerry, I think you've already done this. You've already lost the weight. And now you're trying to and I think you should focus more on getting fit. And yes, your DEXA scan is going to go up and down. And again, I told you this last time, your DEXA scan is just a number. It's how you feel. It's, you know, I'd say you're more of a man now than you were when you were 80 pounds heavier. So know that everything you're doing is just helping you along the way for the future. So continue on that path, but don't be so focused on that, trying to lose weight or trying to get that fat down or that body percentage down, and just try and focus on getting the strength and the power and getting into the activity, which is what your goal was, which was to, you know, if I recall going back, it was to do a 24-hour hike or a 12-hour hike. It was to complete Mount Whitney without needing, you know, some extra help. It was getting that extra 1,000 feet.
Without a helicopter, without a helicopter.
Without a helicopter ride, you know, without a $30,000 helicopter ride. So, you know, I think if you focused on that portion of it, you would see that everything else will start to fall in line down here. All of those things that you were so concerned about. But I would say you probably should turn off the DEXA scan for a few months while this is going on, because you have to give your body time to adapt. Because remember, it's the perfect machine. It was divinely created perfect machine. So it needs to adapt. So your body's going to go, ooh. In the beginning, your body's going to go, oh, thank you so much, Jerry. This is delicious. I got the extra protein I need. Boom. And it's going to sock it where it needs to go. And then at the same time, your body's going to be like, well, we're not quite sure if Jerry's going to screw us over tomorrow. So we're going to store some of that too. So you're going to see those numbers start to go up. You're going to see some of those things kind of fluctuate. But I think as you start to work through the process, you're going to find yourself where you need to be. And, you know, again, you got to get those protein numbers up. And I don't know how you do that. I really don't know how you do that, because that's a vegan thing. And I would venture to say you got to talk with some vegans. You got to get some vegans on the show and say, hey, legitimately, I don't care if you don't like cow's milk. I don't care if I got to drink oat milk or whatever it is, or almond milk. Be careful with those. There's lots of weird things in some of that stuff. So be very, very careful with them. But, you know, whatever you've got to do to get to where you got to get to, you got to do it, because you got to get those protein numbers up. You got to stop cannibalizing yourself, and you got to stop eating yourself. And then going back to your hikes and your long endurance activities, a carrot is a negative calorie. You can eat carrots, and it takes more energy to eat the carrot than it does for the carrot provides.
There was so much truth to that. There was so much truth to that. It was really, the chewing was taking so long that it was already time to eat again.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you can, like, people who want to lose weight, I think carrots and celery were designed for those types of things, because you just can't. It's more work to consume than it actually provides you in caloric intake, but there are some vitamin benefits to them. But anyways, back to that piece of it, you've got to go back to dosing with amounts of carbohydrates that provide you with a little less complexity. Some of the simple carbohydrates, you know, some maltodextrin, some sucrose, and I know you're like, no sugars, no. But those are you can get those in healthy ways. You even an applesauce is a great quick way. I mean, you could take Still London's applesauce squeezy thing. It's 60 calories of applesauce. It's 19 grams of carbohydrates. It's a perfect energy source on that low intensity workout. And then couple that with a handful of nuts and sunflower seeds and that type of stuff. And you'll find that if you're doing that on an hourly basis, or maybe even every 45 minutes, along with keeping your your water consumption up, you'll find that you will actually perform better. One, but two, you'll come back from that workout with less of a deficit that you feel this need to feed. And I think you won't struggle as much with, like, oh, I'm starving, I'm hungry, because you're feeding it while you're doing the exercise. So
I want to share with you how I felt. I felt like the carrots gave me a little bit of energy, but I did feel like most of them were still in my stomach when I finished. Like I could still feel like carrots in my stomach, which was a funny feeling.
Well, it's all fiber.
Yeah,
it's all fiber. It's not that. So going back to the applesauce piece, that's already almost like it's already digested, right?
Yeah.
It's liquid. Those squeezable applesauces are great. They make an applesauce one. They make all the different flavors you can imagine. They even make one with yogurt in it, so you can get a little protein if you needed to.
We buy
and
them
that goes back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're great for that type of an activity. There is some science nutrition ones that are out there that are even more carb loaded, which provide you with much more sustained energy and for longer durations. But if you're just experimenting and you're wanting to try and find what your body can do, you can use those things to start. But let me kind of hit on this. You because your goal was 24 hours.
Yeah.
Carrots. So food consumption during exercise is actually part of the exercise. Consuming food is part of the exercise. It's part of the training. Okay. So you train for an event. If somebody goes out and they're like, I got to train, I got to work hard, I got to put in, 20 hours a week, I've got to do all this, right? I got to lift weights. But during your event, whatever you do during your event has to mimic your training. So if you're not consuming calories during your training and you're not consuming foods that are going to sustain you for 24 hours during training, how do you think your body's going to react when you try and put calories in it while you're in your event? Event.
Yeah, I needed to hear that. I really needed to hear that because, I've sort of shelved the 24-hour hike while I'm trying to lose weight because I definitely instinctively know that I can't do both. So I've sort of put myself in the block of focusing on the body fat thing. All of a sudden, I've taken the activity out, which I know for you, it probably feels like, why would you do that? Because the most fun is in the activity. And I feel the same as you. I think the most fun is in the activity. So I'm struggling with that, man. Honestly, I am literally battling whether to stay the course with the body fat part of the journey or stay the course with the activity. I know I can't have both. I've sort of learned
you cannot have both. And I think that's one of the struggles that so many people, well, let me rephrase that. You can have both, but your mind and your discipline has to be on the training. Discipline has to go to the training. You can't focus on weight loss and focus on training at the same time, in my opinion. I mean, yes, professional athletes do that, but what they have figured out and what everybody else, it's pretty clear. I mean, if you're training for a 24-hour event, guess what? Natural default, the body's going to follow. I mean, the fat's going to come down, the body is going to slim down, because every time you go out to do these training events, your body's like, okay, we know what we're doing here. We're being fed properly. We're being fueled during the workout. Our macros are in alignment, our nutrition, our water, everything's in alignment. If you get all that stuff in alignment and you focus on the training, the natural byproduct of that training is going to be your body preparing itself to get into the fittest, strongest state that it can possibly get in. And don't look at the scale. I have to put my scale away. I mean, I'm in zone 2 season right now. We call it base season. I'm in a periodic system where I do all this endurance, and then I'll do my intensity later on. I'll fine tune it for the event. But right now, I'm focused on building mitochondria. I'm focused on building strong muscles, and I'm focused on building a body and a system that consumes fuel the way that I want it to consume fuel. I tell exactly, I mean, I consume nearly 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour while I'm on the bike, per hour. When I'm in my endurance zone, I only consume 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. If I throw in any intensity, it automatically goes up to 90 grams. So that's a lot of carbs, right? So, and my body consumes every one of them. It absolutely destroys them. The training will naturally get you where you need to be, but you can't focus on both of them. You can't have the mindset of, oh, I got to lose weight, because if you lose weight purposefully and you do calorie depletion, which is what you're in right now, you're sub 2,000 calories and you're working out 10 plus hours a week, you're guaranteed to be sub. Your performance will never improve. You will always stay on this plateau, and likely the fat will kind of undulate and everything. You'll eventually get down here, but you're going to be miserable. I think you've done all the hard work already. You did the unthinkable. You already lost the 80 pounds of body mass that you carried around and struggled with. I think now it's time to switch gears. And I would think that if you switched gears to event planning and really focused on what your goal is and fed yourself for that goal and worked yourself for that goal and didn't look at DEXA scan, didn't look at your body scale, you will find that as long as you meet your macros and as long as you don't overindulge, it doesn't mean you can't indulge. It doesn't mean that every now and again you can't have a slice of key lime pie or you can't do something. As long as you don't overindulge and sit down and binge with, a large movie popcorn and a bucket of I don't know, Whoppers,
The whole key lime pie? The whole
or the whole key lime pie. Yeah, exactly. You can still indulge, you can still eat all these things, but you focus on the training, you focus on the macros, and you focus on the protein. I mean, if you jack that protein up, you're going to be so full anyways. I don't know where you're going to have extra room to eat anything else if you got that protein level where it needed to be, because protein is a filler, so you get rid of the carrots on the run or on the walks. They're not doing you any good. If anything, they're probably doing you harm. They're extremely fibrous. So your body is having to work 10 times harder to it can't even digest it. So it's psychological if it's doing anything for you. Consume something like the nuts, which will give you the healthy fat and give you the protein. And then the applesauce, which will give you the carbohydrates that'll be instant energy. I mean, I bet you if you ate an applesauce while walking, you would feel like it was rocket fuel. You'd be like, oh my God. I mean, it would just be massive for you because your body doesn't know what to do with sustenance while you're out there doing what you're doing.
How often would you, on a long walk like that, how often would you take in an applesauce, for example?
So we're only talking about 60 grams of we're talking about 60 calories. And I think that those little applesauces, I just looked at them at the grocery store the other night because I was like, because the science nutrition is so expensive, like when I'm buying it, I'm like looking for cheaper alternatives, but I would have to carry like 20 applesauce packets. I might as well have a jar of Mott's in my back pocket. So I think the little ones are 60 calories, 19 grams of carbohydrates. I think if you consumed one of those about every 45 minutes with a handful of nuts and seeds, I think you would hit the spot. I think you would have to play with it. And I think you could go, depending on the intensity. So say it was a hike and you're out there and you've got a lot of vert and you're doing some climbing, you could even bump that to like every 30 minutes, when I say a handful, I mean a small handful of the nuts and seeds, because it's hard to process that as well while you're hiking. but I would say that would give you some chew factor, that'd give you some crunch, that'd give you some satisfaction. And if you get the ones with salt on it, it maybe give you a little electrolytes. I know you shake your head, but salt is, again, it comes from the ocean, Jerry.
I know.
It comes from the ocean. It's nature seasoning. I'm not saying break out the bottle of Morton's or nothing, and just a little sea salt on there is so delicious. But
remember, too delicious is a slippery slope for me. Can't be that delicious.
Too delicious.
Yeah.
Well, then you might hike more. You would hike
more.
I
would have to hike more.
I need some salt. I need some salty seeds. I got to go for a hike. I'll be right back, Susan. Yeah, I think if you did that about every 30 to 45 minutes, and you can play with it depending on the intensity. If you're on a flat walk, I would back it off to like 45 minutes. If you're on a hike, I would be a little more aggressive with it. Chocolates, antioxidants. I don't know where that fits in your realm, but some 70% chocolate in there would help with the sweetness and give you a little bit of sugar as a byproduct. That would be a good thing as well with nuts, because that could use up some of the, instead of, if you get tired of applesauce, or if that gets boring, you got to give yourself a little variety.
True.
And remember that your body is a machine, and you got to be a little tricky with it. You can't just feed it the same things over and over and over and over again, because your body is going to be like, okay, this is it. This is all we get. This is all we have. So if you start tripping your body up a little bit and throw a little curveball in there every now and again, your body will respond to that. And it could be crazy what it does for you. And you can play with those things and see what your body does. Have you ever done glucose monitoring?
No.
No. That's another alternative. It's really difficult right now to do glucose monitoring in the United States. You can, if you lived overseas, you could buy a continuous glucose monitor anywhere. I talked with my doctor, and I was just like, hey, I think I might have a little bit of an issue with, sugary foods. Is there anything you can help? She let me get a glucose monitor for a couple of months, and that helped me understand what foods did, like bananas, what bananas do to me, what an apple does to me while out training. So maybe some monitoring of that, but include some of those foods. I think you'll be right there.
It's funny that as we're speaking, I'm not going to post it online because I don't want to freak anybody out, but my nutritional coach, to your point, my nutritional coach just literally sent my before and afters since I've been working with her. I've been working with her for 60 days. And God, this is fascinating. I will text this to you. So she says, proof that the scale doesn't tell the whole story. So I sent her my photos 2 months ago, and she wanted me to send her my photos now. And she has the software to put the photos next to each other, the before and afters.
Yeah.
And there's quite a difference that does not even agree with the DEXA scan. If you look at me visually, you would think, wow, he's doing much better now than he was then. It's really cool. Wait till you see this. So
yeah,
to your point,
well, DEXA scan, yeah, the DEXA scan too, it can vary. I mean, they're not perfect by any means. I mean, any surplus of fluids, if you got a little bit of a cold, maybe you're fighting some sort of, maybe you had too hard of a workout and you're fighting some inflammation, that can change a DEXA scan completely. So I know they're supposed to be like this, the omnipotent machine, but you never know.
The end all be all, right?
Right. Well, we think that, but it's not. It's not. The end all be all is you and how you feel.
You keep saying that.
Yeah. Well, you're the only person you need to impress.
Let's see if you got the text. So this is
I just got it.
This is just in 60 days.
Yeah. See, dude, the DEXA scan is full of crap.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting.
I mean, it's crazy. I'm telling you, Jerry, I say turn off the DEXA scan for a few months, 6 months, transition to training, transition to your goal, and stop worrying about what you weigh, and stop worrying about, your fat, your body fat, because your body fat is not a representation of who you are. Who you are is what you do and how you do it. I mean, just go out and do it, and set a goal and hit the goal, and train for the goal, and feed the goal,
Beautiful work, man. I really appreciate them. So We're about 30 seconds away from somebody walking into our room for another podcast.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to close by giving you a huge hug and a big thank you for making me see things in a different way. And that's really what I need. So the fact that you're willing and able to do that for me and anybody watching is super appreciated. I will also tell anybody who's enjoyed this episode, please smash that subscribe button, give us a like, and give us a comment or two. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is a complex topic, as you can see, and it's something that—
And we're not doctors.
And we're not doctors, and it needs to be pursued, and it needs to be addressed. And I think walking into it, then walking away from it is where true success comes from. So with that, I'll say goodbye to you, my friend.